28 Bravo, taxi holding point Alpha 1, runway 27.
From its position nearly 100 feet above the runway, air traffic control is the eyes and ears of Bristol Airport 24 hours a day for 365 days of the year.
Thank you.
Its main control room handles up to 190 flights a day during the busy summer period and many more international and local flights passing overhead.
People always say to us that the job at Bristol must be a lot easier than doing the job perhaps at somewhere like Heathrow or at Gatwick. What we always say to them is it's a very different type of job because the guys at Heathrow and Gatwick are not dealing with all the light aircraft flying through the airspace and getting in the way of the commercial aircraft that we have to control on a daily basis here. But everything we do is procedure-based, everything we do is tried and tested. There's very little room for free thought or free expression in this job. It's not a creative job particularly, it's very much a procedure-driven job. So what I'm doing now is I've got a Navy Sea King from Yeovilton making the first one for the approach here. Navy Victor Oscar, turn left, heading 300, report established. Second one is the Jersey European flight from the Isle of Man here between Portishead and Clevedon going downwind to position behind him. And just about to call me is an EasyJet flight from Palma, just leaving the controlled airspace here northeast of Minehead. Easy 5 Charlie Delta Bristol radar, good afternoon, Vectors ILS approach, runway 27, number 3 in traffic. Continue initially on a radar heading of 080.
Surprisingly, although we live in an age of computers, air traffic control still relies on pen and paper.
The flight progress strips are a way that we keep of keeping track of everything that's going on and keeping a record of it, more to the point. And although people have tried to devise an electronic way of keeping a record and keeping the situation updated, we find that a biro and a piece of paper works as well as anything, and it's completely foolproof. They're colour-coded. We get the strips printed out 2 hours before a flight operates. The blues are departures, the yellows are arrivals, and a red strip holder such as this indicates that the aircraft is either overflying or transiting through our airspace and not landing at this airport. And we use these as a basic source of information, which we then update with the biro by giving the information on the strip of the altitude to which the aeroplane is climbing and ascending, the runway it uses, the times that we transfer it from one agency to another, any headings that we give the aircraft and so on. And we keep these strips normally for 90 days after the flight's operated. If there's an accident or an incident, we seal these up in a bag, impound the taped recordings of everything that's said, because everything we do is taped. Pass a message.
In such a fast-moving and pressured environment, what is it that makes a good air traffic controller?
Well, you've got to think ahead slightly in this job. The KLM flight into Cardiff here is outside controlled airspace, so we need to tell him that now. KLM 1063, you've left controlled airspace. This is a radar advisory service now. And again, because we have a departing KLM flight which is going to join the airway up here at Wootton Under Edge, he'll take off from runway 27 and then turn right, cross overhead Clevedon area here, up towards Filton and join the airway here. We don't particularly want this inbound to Cardiff routing through the Bristol overhead because the two aeroplanes will conflict somewhere round about the Yatton area. So we deliberately put the KLM on a radar heading to take him down towards the Chew Valley, south of Churchill and towards Breen Down area here. By doing that, it ensures that the track of that aeroplane remains clear at all times of the departing aircraft from here, taking off and going up towards Wootton Under Edge. I can then release that aeroplane on a heading to position him towards the centre line of Cardiff's runway here and hand him over to the Cardiff controller quite safely. And that's just what we'll do in about another 2 or 3 minutes.
Back on the ground, Airport Safety Officer Jim Calloway is waiting to carry out his regular runway inspection.
Tower, this is Ranger at Alpha 2. When convenient, I'd like to enter for a surface inspection.
Ranger Tower, after the Cherokee runway 27, hence the report runway vacated.
After the landing Cherokee 27, enter report vacated. Ranger. We're entering the runway now. The aircraft, you can see, is light aircraft's just landing there. There's various lights we have on the runway. The centre line area, as you can see, is a white row of lights. The red areas are marking the undershoot of the runway. So basically, you don't want to land here. This is the undershoot. As we come up here, you see a row of green lights. This is the threshold markers, and obviously they call this the piano keys. As we travel down the runway, so you can see all the rubber that's built up here. This is the touchdown zone, and this is marked. The touchdown zone throughout is marked with the white sets of lights either side of the centre line. And what we have to do every 6 months is carry out friction measurement on the runway to assess that the rubber build-up isn't affecting the actual friction characteristics of the runway. The runway surface is made of grooved asphalt. That helps the water drain off. It also provides the friction for the aircraft landing. Over the years, we've found a couple of unusual things. Remember years ago, a light aircraft departed and this chap must have left his clipboard on the wing. I was going down, there's this clipboard and a nice Parker pen actually attached to it, which was left right over on the runway edge there. At night, the runway inspections form part of the bird hazard control at night. And although some people may say birds don't fly at night, obviously, apart from your owls and that, certain species may turn up on your airfield at night. Therefore, if there's been no movement on the runway for 15 minutes of takeoff or landing, we're obliged to carry out a runway surface state inspection, and we can do up to 15 to 20 inspections on a night. And there again, the surface state has to be reported. There's various sequences that have got to be reported. I just vacated the runway at Golf 1, which is a holding point. I'm going to report into air traffic now. Tower, this is Ranger, vacated at Golf 1.
Said vacated, dry contact to the ground now, channel 1.
Roger, Tower, over to ground, channel 1. Go back to the runway surface state reporting. We have to report it in thirds with the exception of a dry runway. So we could get 3 different types. You could have dry, damp and wet all in one inspection. That can occur when a shower line has passed over part of the airport. So the first third of the runway may be dry at the eastern end, the middle section may be damp, and the last third may be wet. Or there again, which amuses some people, sometimes we report wet, wet, wet.
But the work of Bristol Airport isn't just about the aircraft that use it. For the past few years, it's also been a training ground for airport firemen from across the world. Using a state-of-the-art rig modelled somewhat loosely on a Boeing 767 aircraft. The rig cost £150,000 to build, and with the help of gas jets can recreate 16 types of fire scenarios, ranging from jet or prop engines to undercarriages. Today is the culmination of a week of training for a group of airport firefighters from Ghana. It's time for them to put into practice everything they've been taught about dealing with a major incident. And enthusiasm is something they don't lack.
That was good. You split your resources, and that is what you had to do. You had no manpower available. The one thing that none of you were doing, you were not low enough. You must adopt a much lower position, a safer position, so that if there is any fire, it's going over your heads, okay? But the tactics were correct.
I think the best word for this piece of equipment is a simulator. It will simulate what you can and possibly could face. It can never be real, because the one thing that you haven't got is the human element, the passengers that are escaping, people reacting in different ways, because you can never fully simulate that. However, what it can do is it can make these firefighters rehearse what they should be going through, the processes that they need to adopt in order to carry out and effect a rescue properly.
We're going to simulate an external fire situation. The scenario is we have a 757 that's landed heavily, okay? As a result of it landing heavily, it has to brake hard. Therefore, you end up with undercarriage assembly fires. For the drill purpose, there are 6 souls on board missing.
Really, today we wanted to actually put together all of the components that they've learnt through the week. So we've started their training from a very basic level, explaining why they need to actually expedite the way that they firefight. You'll find that when they first come here, there's no emphasis placed on speed and time and knowledge in what they actually have to try to achieve to actually save life. So today pulls all those elements together, and what we tried to achieve is we set them an exercise that's really too big, so that people actually turn around and have to think for themselves and react to the changes that take place. We're looking at them actually picking up the fundamentals, and that's things like taking and adopting the correct positioning, so that then that leads to quick and swift hose running, and then deployment of media on the fire to protect the fuselage. Because the priority is that we try to, where possible, create exit paths for people inside the aircraft to vacate under their self-steam. Once we've achieved that and we've extinguished the external fire, then we can start worrying about the people inside who cannot self-evacuate. And that's when you saw the crews donning and breathing apparatus and making entries and searching for anyone who hasn't made it out under their own steam.
Inside the fuselage, real fires of wood and paper have been lit. And besides the dense smoke, it's also extremely hot. The final task facing the Ghanaian team is to now find the dummies which have been spread throughout the aircraft to achieve their task.
Get hold of him, Ricky! You get hold of him and you just keep him with him. Get all those ones, get everything. Okay. Right, let's get everything. Get on the area. How many have you found? Six. Sure. How many people are we looking for? 6, okay, is all the fires out? Can we get venting? Let's get this aircraft clear of smoke, come on.
I'd like to think that they'd be able to take away with them something where they can, when they're faced with a situation, be able to actually take a step back, think about what they have to achieve first, and then deploy as swiftly as possible. One of the things that we do try to practice in the fire service, particularly within the aviation industry, is to actually make sure that crews carry out unsupervised, because there's one thing being an officer in charge who has to think about 10 other different things, but each person is part of the actual mechanism that makes this service work, so everybody has to be able to think on their feet.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. British Airways departure to Jersey, flight number BA4033 is now ready for
Most days, Claire Barbier keeps her feet firmly on the ground.
boarding at gate number 2.
Morning, sir.
She's the face of British Airways that passengers see either at check-in, at the departure gate, or seeing them off out on the tarmac.
Enjoy your flight. Bye-bye.
Bye. Don't film me, I'm supposed to be at work.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Make sure all electronic equipment has been switched off. Thank you very much. Morning, sir.
You need a passport as well, yeah?
No, that's fine. That's fine. We can recognize you anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Merci. Au revoir, madame.
Mais de rien. Bon voyage, monsieur.
Yes, thank you.
Au revoir. Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Here we are, sir.
Bobo.
Nice trousers.
Today is a very special one for Claire, and she's close to finishing her early morning shift. As the clowns leave on their trip, Claire sets off for a very important date. She's learning to fly, and today it's time to go solo.
A bit nervous, but I'm sure once I'll be next to Andy and a couple of circuits, I'll be fine.
Under the expert eye of instructor Andy Harbottle, Claire carries out the vital safety checks.
You just make sure there is no pins or any screw missing. And as well, you're just looking at basically if there was no bird strike on the first, on the previous flight, which obviously give damage. Then check the fuel. There is no bubble of water. So, check brake fluid, very important. Okay, so trucks away. I'm ready for the internal check.
Claire's been learning to fly with Aeros at Filton, the home of British Aerospace, 12 miles across the city from Bristol International. So far, she's completed over 20 hours and still has many, many more to go before getting a commercial license. But every pilot started in a situation like this, in a small single-engine plane and in a cockpit full of nerves.
80s, we haven't got any, and also your low volt. Anti-collision light on. Okay, clear prop and magnetos
So
on
we'll
both.
give him a call and
Yeah.
request an engine start.
But for Claire, the ambition is not to fly commercial airliners. She's aiming for something far less glamorous and unusual. A career flying a crop spraying plane, probably in Canada. Today's flight is just one small but vital step towards being allowed to fly any aircraft on your own. But first she'll have to take off and fly a few circuits at the Filton runway to convince her instructor Andy that she's really ready and able to go on her own. Unlike the cloudy weather, the takeoff is perfect. Had it been raining or the wind blowing just a little stronger, the solo attempt would have been put off to another day. But even a short distance into the flight, the wind is getting stronger and there's some turbulence, so it's time to get back to Earth. After just a few short circuits, Claire and Andy taxi back to the tarmac. Now Andy has to decide whether Claire can go for that solo attempt. And the answer is yes.
So when we go, just call for startup.
Yeah.
Okay. Run through your normal power checks as normal.
Yeah.
Ready for departure, and then just do one circuit just to land, and then come back round and taxi here.
Okay.
And we'll be here to greet you. All right.
Okay. Yeah, that's
so
fine.
enjoy it. Have fun.
Yeah. Basically, once you're in the trip and you just find out again the habit and your reference point and so on. So yeah, that's fine. With his really placid and calm voice, Andy, that's fine. No worries. The night before, I was kind of worried. Oh, he's not worried, he's just concerned about it. God, solo on your own up there, and you know, when you think 8 months back, you didn't know what a rudder was or those kind of thing. So people was like, God, I would never dream about it.
Go back to Bravo, runway 09, clear for takeoff, surface wind 08008.
After months of training and 23 hours of flying, Claire is at last on her own.
And I think, yeah, that's my personality, being up there. Maybe not on the cloud, but, you know, just up there. I don't know really what, but I always wanted to fly.
You've always got that little bit of apprehension, but you wouldn't send them up there if you didn't think they were confident enough in doing it. And yeah, Claire's definitely able and capable of doing a nice good landing. No problems at all.
Because you always keep runway as reference point. So I look at on my right hand side, I've got a better view on the runway. The X-Twitter is not there anymore.
9009.
So far, Claire's solo effort has been perfect. There's just the small matter of landing.
Once my 3 wheels were on the ground, then I thought I reached a big step.
Very good. Textbook. No problem at all.
I've got a grandfather, which I've never known because he died before I was born, and I knew he was pilot in the army. And in a way, I just thought, well, here we are, mate. I came to join you in a way, you know, in the same kind of department or passion that you had, but I didn't know him, so never mind. Maybe up there I could share a kind of passion with him. I just say thank you to Filton Tower. I had his congratulations. I could hold a bit more, but it was so quick, you know, you haven't got time. So yeah, off, and my...
Brilliant, well done. Excellent.
Yeah, it's just really quick, you know, so you haven't got time to think, you know, really properly about things, so...
You just become that.
Yeah, it's automatic. Yeah, absolutely. No, I really enjoyed it. I was almost saying, can I do a second one? Because it's just too quick and, you know. Yeah, no, that was really good.
Brilliant.
So,
Good stuff, well done.
Well, a good thing done.
Congratulations, Eric.
Back at Bristol's other airport, it's presentation
Can
time.
we do the proper handshake?
That's too complicated for me.
The firemen from Ghana have completed their training course and are collecting their certificates.
Bodu. Mills. Well done.
Thank you.
Hey, good man. Well done.
Well done. Excellent. What a good day you had today, eh?
Thank you.
Yes. Never stop smiling.
Thank you.
Like that.
And last but not least, Sam. Well done, Sammy. Well done. Good work today. You learned a lot. Well done.
Thank you.
Good man.
Sam, what a good day today. Yeah, you were the star man. You did well today.
And the Ghanaians have their own way of saying thank you to the Bristol crew.
Ahoya! Ahoya!
Next week at Bristol Airport, Jim's on patrol and spotting problems.
All right, in fact, I have spotted a possible hazard here.
And Somerset and England cricketer Andy Caddick learns to fly a helicopter.